Good evening, everyone. Okay. Sorry, there's a little feedback back here. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the Otsego City Council meeting. Tonight is Monday, March 14th. Audra, can you have the record show that we've been doing this differently for 2 years? So our city attorney's here, our city planner's here, our city engineer is here. Council member Gady's present, Council member Darkemald's present, Council member Dahl is present, Council member Moores is absent, along with our assistant city administrator and our city administrator are present. I will ask you all to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first item of business this evening is a special presentation. We have the Elk River Fire Chief, Mark Dickinson, here this evening. So we'll invite him up to the podium.
Mayor and council, good evening. Thanks for having me here. So I'll bring your attention first to the report that I had sent out to you for the year end. As you're getting that together, I'll just kind of cover some of the things that we've updated and have been going through in Elk River on our fire department of the city. So currently we have the remodel at Station 2, which is just about complete, just some tweaking, some fine little things that need to be completed yet, but otherwise for the most part, I'd say it's 99% complete. With that remodel, what we were able to add for the firefighters is space for them to be able to have a separation from the contaminants that they are exposed to at fires and other scenes, and keep those contaminants in that one bay area, with addition of adding another area where they're able to use restrooms, shower, decontaminate and get some of that stuff off before they have to return home to their families or back to their business or employment. With that, they've also added a few other spaces for the firefighters to be able to decompress together after a serious call. They can critique the scene, what happened, what went wrong, what went right, and then just have a nice area for them to be able to sit and have those open conversations, which we have found to be really successful with dealing with PTSD, which is really serious in the fire service nowadays. Station 3, as you know, is our new fire station that is being built over on the east side of Twin Lakes Parkway in Cleveland, over by Twin Lakes Elementary. That is about 90% complete, with the building being finished April 18th. The only thing that will be left is the exterior concrete. There's quite a significant amount of concrete on the exterior. We decided to wait till spring to make sure that we get the best result. So that will go in and we will officially take the building over in June, which times well with the new engine and tender that will be going to that station. So another addition, just to keep you up to date, we had our approval for paid on call firefighters went from 45 to 60 with the addition of the third fire station. With heavy recruiting this last year, we are up to 51. And I believe with one more year of hard recruiting, we should be able to get to that 60 or very close, depending on how many people retire. That'll be one of those things we'll keep an eye on. A year after year, we'll constantly have to keep recruiting every year, I'm sure. So with that, I'll just take you to page 3 in the report. That one looks like this. So this is a breakdown of the total incidents of emergency response that we were called to in 2021. 577 runs. That includes the city of Elk River, part of the city of Otsego, and Big Lake Township, which is about 50% of what we respond to there. We usually only get single digit runs into Big Lake Township, so that really doesn't affect the total numbers. So out of the 577, which was a new record run total for us, we did see a heavy increase in vehicle accidents, motor vehicle accidents, and alarms. A lot of that has to do with the road construction that has been going on. Last year, you saw that there was with Highway 10 and then all the side roads and all the county roads that were being done. We did see a real big increase with those motor vehicle accidents. Out of the 577 runs, 110 of them were to our response area in the city of Otsego. As you can see, they fairly match up closely to our total run volume. Not a huge surprise. Fires and alarms being our biggest call volume that we respond to. And then as we turn the page, we'll go into a little bit further breakdown of what those categories mean and break those categories down a little bit further. So category 1, the fires, and as it explains in here, anywhere from structural fires, vehicle fires, wildland, cooking, rubbish, mutual aid. There's a large amount of different types of volumes for fires that we respond to. Alarms, again, can include carbon monoxide, sprinkler alarms, fire alarms. Sometimes we call them nuisance alarms if they're just a bad battery. That includes that as well. Category 3 is hazardous materials. That can be anywhere from methyl ethyl bad stuff to gasoline leaks, gasoline spills, and natural gas leaks as well. So cut lines. We did see a large increase in that as well this year because of the construction and the road construction, and that there was a lot of gas lines that were cut. Category 4 is vehicle accidents. Pretty straightforward. We do break that down into motor vehicle accidents with injuries and without injuries. Some of the more serious compared to the less serious. False alarms, again, this is the category where we will get called for something and then either get canceled en route or we get on scene and it's unfounded. That could be anywhere from somebody thinking they smell gas in the area, and we get on scene and we're not picking up any smell or readings of anything, just unfounded. Or somebody had an alarm go off in their house because they pushed the wrong button. We get called out, and then halfway en route, we get canceled by dispatch because they have the proper cancellation code, the homeowner's there. So that's what that category falls into. And then lastly, category 6 is agency assist. And this is usually if we get called up for like a down power line from utilities, or if the sheriffs or police departments, law enforcement call us out for some type of an assistance. That can usually be more than likely be forcible entry into a residence if they need help with. We don't get a lot of those. So, and then lastly is the medical. Just a quick reminder, we in the city of Elk River Fire Department, even though we are all trained to emergency medical responder, and actually the majority of our department are EMTs and a small percent of paramedics, we do not first respond unless asked for. And that would be requested by an ambulance, or if it was something significant like a full arrest. There are some variations to that, but for the most part, we are not first responding like a lot of fire departments do, because of the fact that we do have the Elk River Fire Ambulance there. And with their emergency response vehicles that get out really quick, they usually get on scene and rendering care before we would even get to the station. So there really wouldn't be any need for us to first respond unless they request it, and then we respond. So that's what that category is. So if we go a little bit further deep into it, we can break it down. I did put in a comparison from 2020 to 2021 for our call volume into the city of Otsego, just so you can kind of see where some of those run volumes may have increased. So if we look at the fires, structured fires were up a little bit last year. No real reason for that. There's no way of knowing when you're going to get structured fires. We just know that they're going to happen. Vehicle, wildland, again, those were up as well a little bit. We did have an extremely dry year, and some of those wildland grass fires could have started from a vehicle fire. We did have quite a bit of that last year with the drought, that vehicle fires would spread to the grass, and now we had a entire median on fire as well. So kind of doubled up on that. And then the rest of the graphs kind of same thing. We'll go through and break it down for the fire alarms, all the different categories. I don't know if I need to go through every single one. I think they're pretty self-explanatory for you. And I don't want to bore you with a bunch of talk. So with that, I'll just stand for any questions that you may have for me.
Right. Does anyone have any questions for Chief Dickinson? Tom?
Madam Mayor, just a question with the station number 3 about to come online. What will that do to the response time to residents in Otsego in the service area that you guys have?
Mayor and Council, good question. We've looked into that already. That will not be a problem. That will not affect our response time because of the strategic locations of the 3 stations that we have. And that's again why we're having 60 firefighters, 20 per fire station, which gives us the most opportunity to have the majority of firefighters showing up to each station, because we need to be able to get a certain amount of vehicles to a scene is what we're looking at getting. So that won't affect anything for our response anywhere.
And as far as that goes, the equipment that you have in the other stations and what you're going to have stationed at station number 3, will that be shifting in any way, or will you still have the same capital equipment located at the current station to service Otsego?
Yep, Council Darkenwald. To answer that question, it won't change. So we added a brand new engine and tender that will be going to the new station 3. So that's in addition to our fleet. We have an additional extra grass rig that will go over there that we don't need piled up at another station right now. So right now we're looking really well with the equipment that we have.
I have a question or comment, and I've talked with Mark about this in the past. That station 3 going online is in conjunction to in preparation for the 169 project. So that will be fully functional and ready to go. So that, as to Tom's question about any issues with getting to Otsego, crossing the 169 for your firefighters doesn't become a problem for us then.
Mayor Stockamp, that's correct. We still have fully staffed station 1 and 2, which are our first 2 stations that would be responding to Otsego anyways. Station 1 is the quickest one that responds right now because it's right downtown, just outside there, and can get into Otsego really quick. So yeah, that won't affect, and there will not be any negative effect. If anything, it will be a positive effect because now we'll have additional equipment that we'll be able to bring to a scene if needed. 169 is slated to begin, as we know, next month. But by June, when it's up and running, that's in station 3 will be fully staffed and running. We should be well prepared.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you for coming this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good
you.
night.
Thank you, Chief.
This is still the open forum portion of our meeting. This is the portion where anyone can come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit comments to 5 minutes or less. Would anyone like to speak at this time?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Kathleen Woodford. And I live on the Walsh Estates, which is 14106 82nd Circle. And I believe that that's the road that's going to be repaired, redone. In other words,
Would you like to talk when we get to the engineering report?
Sure.
Since we do have a public hearing, then I'll
Okay.
save time for you then.
okay.
All right, thank you, Kathleen. Any other comments during open forum? All right, we will close the open forum portion of the meeting and move on to item 2 to consider our agenda for approval. Does anyone have anything that they would like to add or delete at this time? Adam?
Mayor, I would request the council add item 8.1.
Everyone had a sheet.
should be distributed in front of you,
Okay.
titled Housing and Local Decision Making Authority.
Anyone else have anything that they'd like to add or delete? Or Tom?
Madam Mayor, I'll approve the agenda as amended.
A second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 3, which is our consent agenda. A motion would be in order. Tom,
Madam Mayor, I'll move the consent agenda items.
is there a second?
A second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 4.1 under engineering is our Walsh Estates Note 8 Acres Street Renewal Project. I'm gonna turn this over to Ron first, and then we do have a public hearing, and we have a resident that would like to speak also, and we will open it up to everyone else also. So I will turn this over to Ron.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Exhibit A is the project location, which includes Walsh Estates Second, and 8 acres. The area in red includes 105 lots. Each of those lots are proposed to be assessed equally. We did hold an open house on Wednesday night from 6 to 9 to allow residents to come in and discuss the project with us. Brent and I were at that meeting, and 15 residents showed up and had some discussions with them. The vast majority were supportive of the project. I'd say the vast majority were okay with the assessment amount. And there was one that attended that was against the timing of the project. And then I also talked to 2 residents via phone, and one of those residents was concerned due to her age and ability to pay. I think she is elderly, is disabled, and she also has a husband that was a vet that recently passed, so she doesn't have to pay property taxes also. So that's all the residents that Brent or I have spoken to. So what we have for you tonight is the crack filling. We do that every 2 to 3 years after the project. Adam can slide forward a little bit. And then after that, this would be after the project is completed. We would do this proactive plan. And then the street would get a fog seal at the 2nd year to hold in those surface fines. And then a seal coat at the 7th year, and micro surfacing on year 17. So micro surfacing is basically a thin layer of asphalt that is like a overlay, but not nearly as expensive, and it does keep a road for another 7 to 10 years. So we've used that in the past. It's worked very well. So again, if you go through that in 2022, this would be proposed to be reconstructed. 2024, we would be putting down a fog seal. In 2029, a seal coat, and then a micro surface in 2039. And these would all be from the city's taxes and not be assessed to the property owners. So then this is existing conditions. It was originally paved in 1978, Walsh Estates, so it's 44 years ago. It's overlaid in 1999, which is 23 years ago, and that overlay is showing its age. We did have one seal coat in there in 2005. The section out there is about 3.5 inches asphalt over 6 inches of class 5. Roads vary a little bit from 18 to 22 feet. We got ditches and culverts for the drainage. And the pavement condition in this area is 33 out of 100, and that is the worst street in the city. There's a lot of thermal cracking, block cracking, alligator cracking. We got some photos of that. But then if we go to 8 acres, that was 1994. That did not get an overlay. So this is 28 years old, but it's a very short cul-de-sac. So we do this at the same time as long as we have all the equipment in there. I did get one seal coat at the same time that Walsh Estates did. Again, it's 3.5 inches over 6 inches of class 5, little wider and with bituminous curbs. So we'll be matching it up with one of our current standards of concrete curb like we did with development just to the north, Heritage Hills. So this pavement condition was pretty low too, 45 out of 100. And again, if you go below 50, that's time for a reconstruct. So again, this had the same issues, blocking, thermal, and elongated cracking. And you'll see those in these photos. You can see the deterioration that the pavement has seen over the years. If we have a few of these photos, it actually works out well to take these photos in the winter. The cracks are kind of highlighted by the salt. So you can see the amount of elongated cracking that's in some of these. You can see some patches that the city has had to do to keep the street passable. So we get through those. What we're proposing to do is to put Walsh Estates, put 2 10-foot lanes with 1-foot gravel shoulders on either side. Currently, the pavement goes right to the edge, and then there's no shoulder on it. So if a car does end up driving over the edge, there's nothing there to support it, and that causes edge cracking. In O'Day Acres, again, it had a bituminous curb. We're looking at 28-foot wide, and then putting concrete curb and gutter back because it does have a storm sewer system. Any of the centerline culverts that are deemed not good enough to go for another 50 years, if they're not concrete and they're metal, we would be replacing with concrete. We don't want to have to go back in there and rip up the brand new street to replace a culvert. And then we do have a few areas that have drainage issues. We're going to take a look at those and see if we can fix some of the most severe ones. We do have some ditch slopes too that are a bit steep. And if we can, we would try to lessen those slopes so it's more mowable. Again, we're going to be putting back 3.5 inches of asphalt. The idea is to reclaim the asphalt and gravel and mix that up with a reclaim machine, and then take some of that material off and stockpile it for the city's use. And then that would allow room for the 3.5 inches of brand new asphalt to go in. So the elevation of the street will stay about the same. Where we have to, we're going to be milling back to matching bituminous driveways. If it is a concrete driveway, we'll look for the nearest joint to cut back to, so it matches in well. And then gravel driveways are the easiest. We just have to add a little bit of gravel to make sure they match in after the road is completed. So we don't expect a lot of turf restoration, maybe just where we have to do some. This is just a road reconstruction project. It's not necessarily a drainage project. So we won't be doing a lot of turf restoration, but where we will be using premium topsoil, and we'll see hydro mulch the areas that are disturbed. So these are the typical sections. On top is the existing road section. We have 66 feet of right of way, which is more than the standard for what we have for our urban sections, but it's a rural section, so it's a little wider. Again, it's 18 to 22 feet, and we're going with a 20-foot surface, getting a crown on that. And then we have the 1-foot gravel shoulders on either side. And with the O'Day Acres portion, that's 29 to 30 feet of asphalt with bituminous curb. Of course, bituminous curb breaks down over time. We'd like to get that replaced with something that's more can stand up to the water that's running along the top of it, and also the snow plows that hit it. And that would be 28-foot wide, matching the current standard plate that the city of Otsego uses. So our project schedule, so far the council has received a feasibility report that my firm has prepared for this project. You've scheduled a public hearing, which is tonight. We did hold that open house on Wednesday. Now we're holding the public hearing tonight. If the council decides to go forward, it would authorize us to do plans and specs. We'd bring that back in about a month for approval, and then authorize advertisement for bids at that time. We have 3 weeks of advertisement, open bids May 3rd, award the contract at a council meeting May 9th. Potential for construction happening June 1st. Hopefully have completion by July 29th. That gives them 8 weeks. I think this is about a 6-week project. And then after the project is complete, we know the numbers, we could hold the assessment hearing. We expect that to be in either August or September. But as you'll see here, the assessments are already
fixed according to the newest assessment policy. So the estimated total project cost is $991,711. If the project cost of assessing goes over 20%, which it does on this one, the max assessment value per lot, and all lots are treated the same, is $1,092. So with 105 properties in here, 1,092, that adds up to $114,660, or 11.6% of the project. The other portion is the city's portion, 88.4. If the project goes up in cost, the city pays the difference. The 105 properties are still set at $1,092. Let's see. So I think that's it. I think there are maybe a few residents here that would like to speak tonight.
All right. So at this time, I will open the public hearing on the proposed improvement of Walsh Estates and O'Day Acres. This is where residents can come, state their name and address, and then we will take your comments since this is an open public hearing.
Like I said, I'm Kathleen Woodford, and I live on 14106 82nd Circle Northeast. And that's the property in front of our place. And I'm here to say that I'm just probably one out of how many that say I don't want it because it's bad timing right now. Because of the war, I'm paying more on gas and food. And I am on a limited money per month. My husband and I both are very limited on our amount. And why I'm here is because we can't afford it. And I can't afford to put it on my property taxes either, because that's high right now for us. So I'm just here to say that I'm not for it. It's not because we don't need it, but I don't know what I can do. Because I'm only one out of, I don't know how many, under 105 residents. If nobody is against it, I guess I'm alone on it. Because I think it's bad timing. I don't know if you can hold off or not because of the war that we got. We don't know how long it's going to last. So I'm just saying, I don't think, why now? Why are you doing this now? I know that the road probably needs it, but we needed it before. Why now? You know, you did the road behind us. So that's all done. But I was just wondering why now? It's been many years.
Ron, would you like to comment?
We go through and we evaluate every year what stage the roads are in. We give it what's called a PCI, or pavement condition index. And we do that and check out the next 10 years of streets that need to be completed. Last year was Heritage Hills was on the list, and this year it's Walsh Estates and O'Day Acres. So it just happened to be that your project came up at the same time that some things are happening in our world that are changing the oil prices.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, okay, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other public comments? Pause one more time. All right, no other open hearing public comments. I will close the public hearing and bring it back up to council for discussion. And any questions we may have? Tom?
Madam Mayor, the project costs of the 991,000, Ron, you stated that 877,051 would be borne by the city. previous to our adoption of our new policy, what would the residents have paid? Instead of the city bearing the 877 and the residents bearing the 114.
Mayor, the residents would have paid the $445,000 estimated portion of this, which would have ended up being a little over $4,300 or so per assessment, being at 50%. That was the old assessment policy before you changed it 2 years ago.
And so now we're changing it to one, or we had changed it to the 1,092 for this year. When we do the assessment, what do we have as far as our options for the residents, as far as the time allotted to pay that assessment? And maybe that's
Directed to Adam.
Tom, the council has usually amortized them over 10-year periods. That's historical. The council has discretion to do that as long as it's within your assessment policy.
And we've usually done that at a very low interest rate.
The city's policy is 1.5% over what the city would bond for these project costs at. So I think last year was 2.4%.
So if I did quick calculation here.
What's this?
Oh, we can't take your comment, sorry. I think he's trying to figure out his math to it. Do you have anything?
Council, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I would imagine it's around $115 a year.
For the 10 years with the interest.
About to be about, yeah, 1024 a month. $122.88. About at 2.4%. And Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I can appreciate those that certainly are on fixed incomes. At the same time, the road is falling apart and it needs to be repaired. We have gone through extreme lengths to reduce the amount that is borne by the residents for repairing the roads. Just like to make that note.
Right. Any other questions or comments on this project? Can you go to the slide? Who's running this? I can't take public comment, but to Tom's point and then to the information that you got, the residents wouldn't be, the assessment hearing for this would not be until August or September, correct?
Correct. At that point, if you'd like to contest the assessment, that is your opportunity. There'll be a notice sent out to all residents, giving at least 2 weeks in advance of the meeting, and that will hold that meeting. And then again, there'll be options for the residents to come up and speak to the assessment hearing amount. And then if they, during the open portion, they have a chance to have a written comment that needs to be given to the clerk prior to the end of that meeting closing, or open forum closing.
But that total for the project, the 1,092 is set per resident. Per
According to the newest assessment policy.
So as you said, if the bids come in higher, the city bears the price, not the residents per parcel.
Correct. And the council have to make that decision once we get those. If you move forward, once we get those bids, then you, on May 9th, will have to determine if you want to go forward with the project.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Mayor,
Tom?
today we are just approving the plans and specs, correct?
Here,
To go forward.
there's a resolution just ordering the preparation of plans and specs.
Madam Mayor,
Tom?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022-26, ordering preparation of plans and specifications for the 2022 street renewal improvement of streets within Welsh Estates and O'Day Acres.
I second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 5 for planning. Item 5.1 is the room and board. I will turn this over to our city planner.
Thank you, Mayor. Room and Board received approval in 2004 to construct their Phase 1 distribution facility located south of County Road 38 and east of Trunk Highway 101 within the Gateway North Industrial Park. That initial approval included the ability to expand the structure up to 221,100 square feet. Room and Board is looking to move forward with that request at this time. In order to accomplish that, they need to remove some utilities that were placed within what is the 65th Street right-of-way, the former 65th Street right-of-way. Basically, the building is being expanded to the south over that location, so they'll reroute those trunk utilities around the proposed building. The reason this is being brought forward to the City Council for action is first to approve a development agreement between the city and Duke Realty to provide securities for the removal and replacement of the trunk sewer facilities, and then also vacation of the existing drainage and utility easements overlying the in-place facilities. Those easements will be replaced by new easement documents over the property covering the existing improvements. The city engineers reviewed the utility plans and they are subject to their office's approval. The easements no longer serve a public purpose with the vacation of the utility lines from that location. So city staff is recommending approval of 2 resolutions, 27 vacating the existing drainage and utility easements, and resolution 2022-28 approving the site improvement performance agreement for city.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to speak before I open up the public hearing? Okay. All right, this is also another public hearing. So at this time, I will open up the public hearing for the room and board. Does anyone have any comments? Again, come to the podium, state your name and address, please. I'll ask again for any public comment. And one last time, any public comment? Hearing or seeing anyone, I will close the public hearing for this item and we will bring it back up to council for any questions for staff or the applicant or motions at this time.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Jeff.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the relocation of existing city trunk utilities and related easement dedication. Adopt resolution 2022-27 vacating existing drainage and utility easements. And adopt resolution 2022-28 approving a SEPA or SIPA for Lot 1, Block 1, Gateway North 4th Edition.
I'll second.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? Tom?
Madam Mayor, Dan, this was approved how long ago?
2004.
2004. Oh.
Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Yes.
Question, when did they plan on, are they planning on putting shovels in the ground this spring?
April,
April.
as soon as possible. It was important to have this on the tomorrow.
Oh,
is what-
tomorrow.
So,
Go get your signed documents from Audra. Thank you. All right, item 5.2 is the VIP Autoplex. Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Ben Kurznak is here this evening with VIP Autoplex, presenting this concept plan for development of a use on 21 acres east of County Road 19, north of 70th Street. It's a somewhat unique opportunity that's guided towards auto enthusiasts for storage and kind of hanging out man cave in a luxurious farm or urban cabin. These are being developed more frequently around the Twin Cities, including locations in Medina and Chanhassen. So the city worked with the developer to present this as a concept plan to provide feedback to them on the acceptability of the use and any site issues that would be generated by the proposed development. That's done at a public hearing at the Planning Commission so that there's transparency to the process, so that for surrounding property owners, they're aware of what's being discussed. It would require future applications for a zoning map as well as subdivision approvals. So the property consists largely of wetlands on the north side of the property, separating it from the Kittredge Crossings and Windsong development to the north. It's basically between the water tower number 2 and Kittredge Parkway. There is an existing single family residence that would be kind of surrounded by the proposed development, as well as one to the west of the site that would have potential compatibility issues that need to be addressed through site development. But the site plan provides these car condos to have multiple principal buildings. The spaces within them are individually owned. There's also a clubhouse component to the site plan that includes uses within the development for minor auto repair done by the individual owners, the private club, indoor recreation, and storage. All these uses would kind of fit within the land use guided for this property for office development. We'd want to approach this as a planned unit development district so that we can specify the allowed uses that are to occur on the site. Frequently, these types of facilities have special events where it's open to the public. The people display their cars, other cars come in. So that creates some concern about the hours, noise, traffic, parking, etc. All these were issues raised both by the Planning Commission as well as the adjacent property owners that attended and who city staff spoke with following the public hearing. And then also we want to address the ownership provisions related to that. So they're showing multiple principal buildings basically on 3.5 acres between Kittredge Parkway and the water tower site. Access would be via a new public street constructed off of 70th Street. That proposed street aligns with where the street to the south is being constructed as part of the AVA development in Albertville, so that we're meeting spacing requirements and intersection alignment on both sides of the boundary road between the two communities. They're showing 30 off-street parking stalls within the site in addition to the spaces within. And again, that ties into the need for a PUD district to look at how the site's managed for special events so that if there are events, it's not spilling out onto 70th Street or adjacent properties. As the developer noted during the public hearing, they own 21 acres in this area. So there is the ability to add parking if there is a need or the scale of the use expands. Looking to at just the setbacks and the lot requirements all comply with what would be conventional zoning. We'd want to ensure screening to the adjacent residential uses, handling of waste. The developer indicated outdoor storage would be not allowed within the development. So you're not gonna have car parts and other things just laying around the site. It'll be well maintained. And then also looking at exterior lighting in compliance with the standards established by the ordinance. Utilities need to be extended to the site. Obviously water is directly adjacent, but sewer comes from Kittredge Parkway, which would be done at the developer's cost. Also looking at stormwater management needs as they move to a development stage plan for handling the stormwater within the facility, as well as protecting the wetlands surrounding it within the site. Park dedication requirements would have to be met as a cash fee in lieu of land, as the city doesn't anticipate acquiring land from this site. The Planning Commission, as well as city staff, think this is a unique land use that probably fits really well into this location as a buffer between the industrial uses along Cadler and to the south in Albertville to the residential uses to the north. Fits within that office use guided by the comprehensive plan. Can be made compatible with surrounding land uses, especially by using a planned unit development district to control the scale and size of the development, and otherwise would comply with the requirements of the city ordinances. The Planning Commission did recommend approval subject to the conditions outlined in the planning report included in your packet. One thing that I didn't address as part of my comments was, so with this existing single-family home to the east, it has an existing driveway onto 70th Street, which is a minor arterial roadway. Ultimately, if that property redevelops as an office type use, the subdivision ordinance requires that this developer would provide a public street access through to that site so that access could be turned back in the future off 70th Street. Given the kind of unique nature of this use and the size of that property, we also discussed with the developer that it would be possible to do the access by easement through their site. That would require the consent of that property owner to agree to it as part of the project approvals. I've spoken with that property owner last week following the public hearing and reiterated that's the city staff's position, and the recommendation is that this arrangement of the streets and the access does require their consent prior to any formal development approval. So that's included in the comments recommended by city staff as well as the planning commission to address that issue going forward. Mr. Kurzneck's present this evening. City council has questions, but city staff is recommending support for the application.
Right. Does the applicant wish to comment?
Thank you, Mayor and Council and Planning, Engineering, attorneys.
Don't forget.
Oh, yeah. Administrators, clerks. Yeah, this is a fun project. I think it's kind of something unique for this area. And as Dan pointed out, it's a pretty nice transition between some of the really intense industrial uses to the south, potentially future to the west. Kind of designed our buildings to look like cabins. So kind of has that north woods feel. There's patios. So it's really trying to make it a fun place. In terms of noise and parking and all that, obviously the development will need to abide by, there are city ordinances already in place about those kind of things. In terms of foreign parking, we made the roads extra wide. So you see the spacing in between the buildings is about 50 feet. So it's quite a wide approach to each one of those units. So you could have a car there as well as multiple cars parked in front of those units and still have room to get by. But yeah, here really this is a concept plan. So if there is any feedback, we'd love to hear it before we go and spend a bunch of money on final drawings.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
can I
Jeff.
comment? How you doing, sir? Thank you for being here, and discussing your plan. Do you have anything, are you involved any with there's a place like this that I've seen in Lionel Lake, off of Lake Drive? Are you aware of that one?
This is our first one. Although some of our partners involved in the project, including property manager, are involved in other condos. So they're advising us on design and layout and construction types.
Okay, and then in the future, when this gets built here, do you guys plan to ever have car shows or anything like that? Maybe club
That'll be
get-togethers?
up to the association. So
Okay.
this is like a townhome association essentially. So as the developer, we'll build it and turn it over to them, and it'll really be up to them. But most of them do that. I think the example everyone looks at is Chanhassen, and that's a very large facility, a little different market. I think what they do is probably much larger scale than would be achieved here, but there's certainly opportunities we think to do some display of cars. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Can we go back to what it looked like? It's the cabins, great cars.
And they have a lake behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where
We
you
don't
putting
have
that?
So wetland.
We do have a
Yeah,
wet-
it's wet there.
Yeah,
It's really
it's
wet.
a very wet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those trees will be really similar. probably
Yeah.
too.
right? I do have
Sure.
a comment question. I guess what drew you to come to Otsego for a concept like this?
I owned some adjacent property and this property became available. And I'd heard a lot about car condos and always liked the area, like the access off of 94. So we could potentially draw from a slightly larger area than just Otsego. We also like the amenities of the outlet mall and some of the restaurants along 19. So.
Any other questions or comments? Tom?
Mayor, question for Dan. Dan, what else could go on this site other than this use?
So Mayor, for example, P&F machine is the typical example we use for the office zoning district as an allowed use. So, professional office, manufacturing, assembly, less emphasis on a warehouse, no outdoor storage on the site.
As you said, it is that good buffer as you've got the Ava project in Albertville, which lines up with the new road
Mayor, and two, when
to homes.
this was initially part of the Kittredge Crossings development, and
Mhm.
FAR development anticipated it being a retail, commercial, or potential hotel type use. And given, the area has changed with respect to the Cadler Avenue interchange not being planned any longer, it would likely be an overpass at this point. Albertville has changed their land use on the south side of 70th from more retail, commercial, entertainment to pure industrial. So the area's changed from what it was originally guided. The property west of this is guided for commercial land use, but again, with those changes in the area, I think as part of the comprehensive plan update, we're likely looking at changing that to straight industrial.
Madam Mayor?
Mhm.
And I know some others were in attendance at the planning commission when this was being talked about. Just overall, I like the concept. I think it's a good fit. I think it adds something to our community. The concerns I have that will be addressed later, I'm sure, is the design, the security, and the parking if you are going to be having events, and that's going to be all how the association is put together and everything. But overall, I like the concept.
And I would concur. I like the concept, all of those interior things, as you said, there was the noise, the alcohol use, the people driving up and down 70th Street. that Hopefully are all addressed then, as Tom pointed out, that when a project is actually in front of us and the association, homeowners association is putting it together, per se. We have old cars, so these are very popular, as you said. And people drive all over to go see people's hidden gems in these garages. So it's a glorified fort, yeah, like a man cave. So pretty sure a lot of husbands are all going to want to rent space from you or wives. Yeah, of course. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Jack.
I can make a motion.
All right.
Motion to support a PUD concept plan subject to the comments as presented in the planning reported data 3rd of March 2022, prepared by the city planner.
Is there a second?
A second.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Tom. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Moving on to utilities, item 6.1 is the West Wastewater Treatment Facility bidding. Mr. Scott Schaefer.
Mayor and council.
Wow, he knew to raise it.
I remembered
man.
from a long time ago.
Sabrina just said, "Well, I didn't know it did that."
I think I was standing up here, like, bending down into the microphone when someone told me before COVID, so it's been a while. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. So I got a couple slides. We'll go through on the West Wastewater Treatment Facility, one we've been talking about for some time now. So site rendering, there'll be a few more updates to that before we're done, but that's generally where everything's intended to go. A little bit of changes with the roads to get some drainage right, but we're getting there. We're stage we're at 90% design, pushing towards 100% to get prepared for bid. So in front of you today, asking for ability to go out and advertise for bids. So the next slide, of course, cost is something we always have to deal with. I will say that this has been a challenging cost environment to predict. Over the last couple months, it has become more challenging. So we're doing our best to predict what our costs are going to be, but we're really not going to know what the costs are until bid day on this one. So doing everything we can to keep the projects competitive, keep the project bidding competitive, and keep those costs down to the extent we can. But this is where we're at right now. For the most part, minimal alternates that we're anticipating for bids. With some of the reconstruction that we're doing on the existing pretreatment building, there's a little bit of grit equipment that isn't quite worn out yet, but also isn't going to make it for another 20 years. So we do intend to get some alternate pricing on that when we have a contractor in there, have the potential to renew some of that equipment when we already have the building out of service with some of that construction phasing. But this is where we're at for construction cost estimating right now. Next slide. A few other notes. I think Adam will get into a little bit more of the funding with the next item on the agenda. But generally following the same process as we did for the East Biosolids building with PFA, Public Finance Authority, or State Revolving Fund loan as the intended primary funding. One of the things we do need to still get, continuing to get updated schedules from Minnesota Pollution Control Agency on when the discharge permit will be renewed. That's potentially taking a little bit longer than we had anticipated. We thought we'd have it right at when we would be starting construction. The most recent information I got, we may have a slight delay working with MPCA on that to keep that as slight as possible. But instead of late May, early June, might be looking at July for that permit. So getting that started as soon as we can. A few of the other items, just interest rates. We won't know what our interest rate lock would be until we actually get the project bid, but it still anticipating it'll be in that range of 1 to 2%, which is other interest rates are rising. 1% is the lowest that the SRF program will go. So it was below where they would get up to 1%. So we think we'll be in that 1 to 2% range. We'll see what happens in the next couple months if it stays there. PSIG is a grant program that we are not, there's a finite amount of state funding available in the PSIG program every year. We were not getting 2022 funding, but because our project is 2022, 2023, there is a decent chance that we will get funding on the order of likely several $1 million for PSIG funding. But that will be a 2023 determination. And then Green Project Reserve, we had some of this with the East Biosolids facility that we thought we were going to get Green Project Reserve, and then we didn't. What we've submitted already, we'll have up to $1 million eligible. And so as long as there is still Green Project Reserve funding available, we're anticipating we're going to get some of that loan forgiveness from the Green Project Reserve program. That funding does appear to be better shored up with some of the federal funding. than it has been in the past. But it's still not guaranteed until we see where other projects land that would also be looking for that green project reserve money. The American Rescue Plan grant, so this is COVID money, this was administered through Wright County. We did receive word that Wright County approved our application for the maximum amount for Otsego of $737,311. So in talking with Adam, my understanding is that will go towards this project. It was water and sewer was the categories for that grant. See, next slide. So we have a much more detailed schedule with some of the other things, but the abbreviated version tonight, looking for authorization to advertise for bids. And next week, plan to have the project open house that we have scheduled and getting coordinated. And that has to do with the conditional use permit part that is also part of the project. Intent right now is to advertise for bids on March 25th, which is the Friday before the next council meeting. So a little bit ahead of time, but this is the last meeting before we intend to go advertise for bids with a late April 6th pre-bid meeting for the contractors, and then a late April bid opening. Intent is to be in a position to come to the first May council meeting to approve those bids, and hopefully we'll have good numbers to bring to you on May 9th with getting things signed before the May 15th deadline for the new strings that are attached on the federal funding bill. Still getting some clarifications from MPCA on that because EPA was supposed to have their guidance out by the end of January and we still don't have it. So it's just part of the reason that I want to stay ahead of those requirements because we don't even know what the requirements are at this time. With the potential delays on the permit, again, doing what we can to get the construction started as soon as we can, but potentially losing a month of this construction season. We were on the edge, and we'll still try to do what we can to keep this as an operational completion in late 2023, but it is looking like it could spill into spring of 2024 for the operational completion, with final completion in mid 2024. It was something we're already considering. Just if we're going late in the year, we want to be able to. We often go to the next spring to get the grass growing because December is not when you can start grass. But that's the general schedule that we're looking at right now. But there's still some things that I'm trying to nail down better with MPCA to firm up that schedule. So with that, I think that was the last slide. So questions?
So you mentioned a few times the MPCA permit, that there's issues with it and delays. Is the holdup on our end, their end? What's the holdup?
It's been on there. There's several different components to the permit. This one is more complex than usual because of the expansion. We've had the part that is the holdup is really the chloride variance, and we submitted that to MPCA over a year ago. Just discussion with MPCA staff. They're, I'll say, different silos with MPCA, and even their own people are frustrated with some of their people. So working with the folks at MPCA to do what we can to continue to have the process moving along and get it done as soon as we can. There are parts of that schedule that we can control. There's a pre-public notice period that's up to 30 days. We plan to turn that around in 1 to 3 days. Basically, the city's pre-review ahead of the public notice, the general public notice period. But there's a 60-day public comment period that we can't shorten because it's in statute. So it's mainly getting it to the public notice period right
With the chloride variance that you mentioned, is it that there's certain restrictions or certain numbers that we're trying to get to, or they're telling us different numbers that we need to build to?
No, with the chloride variance specifically, it's more, there are certain numbers that we will eventually need to be in compliance with, but the variance is an acknowledgement through the permitting process that we don't have the ability to meet permits. So like what we're building, like we will be complying with many different parameters. Chloride is just not a parameter that a wastewater treatment facility can comply with. So that I would say 90 to 95% of this permit is known and in place. There's just this piece that is separate that essentially MPCA has been negotiating with EPA how to deal with the chloride variances. And they have recently been starting to get those variances through EPA. Like it's really been more of an EPA issue than an MPCA issue, which
This is not an Otsego issue.
this is not an
the
Otsego
whole
issue.
state of Minnesota. Anyone trying to do?
Correct.
Okay.
My understanding is there are dozens of maybe not dozens, the last count I heard is that there's 18 variances at MPCA and we are at the top of the list.
Tom,
Madam Mayor, to clarify, and I'll probably ramble a little bit here, but we're hoping to get an application before the EPA changes their rules. However, the MPCA is negotiating with the EPA on certain variants that could change. So is this a chicken or egg problem? And do you know what the chicken and the egg is, or?
They're two separate pieces. There's the limits portion. So that's one portion so that has to do with the discharge permit that's being renewed. Because the way that Congress authorizes money down through the states, that program is administered through EPA. So it's a different part of EPA that is dealing with the funding portion. And that's where the Buy American requirements go through the funding portion of EPA. So my understanding is it's EPA and the Office of Management and Budget. So the two pieces of federal bureaucracy that are writing the guidance that then is administered by MPCA.
In that portion, we're trying to get our permit in place before they vacate.
Correct, because they're separate pieces.
But at the same time, they're still dealing with the other
Correct,
5%.
of the permit.
There's nothing we can do to push that along.
The funding guidance portion, there's probably not much we can do on the portion with the permit. Like our consistent contact with MPCA has been what we have been doing to keep it where it's at right now. So we intend to keep, I have a meeting scheduled with them at 2:00 tomorrow. I had a meeting with them at 1:00 today. Like it's keeping consistent contact with the people at MPCA who are doing that permit to keep it moving. So, I mean, that is our best strategy at this point for keeping the permit moving forward.
And just when we were looking at the numbers earlier, what had we budgeted for?
The project has grown over time.
Well, I'm guessing with inflation, it's,
Do you recall what the 30%, 60% numbers were?
The 60%, I did look at the 60%. I didn't memorize the number, but it was about like the number here is about $2 million more than the 60% number. The 30% number, there was also an increase from 30 to 60.
and as far as building the plants and redoing plants of this size, what supply issues have you been seeing out there?
That's a good question. It's mostly been lead times. Particularly on the electrical gear is where we're hearing a lot of longer lead times. So the motor control centers, because like these are all, a lot of this is higher horsepower equipment. So it's not the 120 volt AC plugged in the wall type stuff. Most of it is running at 480 volts. So when you're at that voltage, they look like the cabinets on the wall with the big switches. Like that type of equipment has been longer lead times, where we used to see 18 to 20 weeks. Now we're hearing 40 weeks up to 52 weeks. The good news for us for this project is that the way it was scheduled out, we have to build a whole building to put that stuff in anyway. So as of right now, the electrical gear is, we're not anticipating it's going to have a major impact. If we have similar lead times to what the lead times I just said. Emergency generator has been a longer lead time, on the order of a year for emergency generator. But again, when we've got a construction schedule that's already longer than a year, that can be one of the later things to go in. What I'm more concerned with, as far as like a critical path, is probably just continuing to get precast concrete. That's the main building material for the structures, and getting that precast. I mean, even the East Biosolids facility that was also mainly precast. And when that early COVID was hitting, we did have some challenges keeping that on schedule. So that's one that it'll vary construction season to construction season. And so I don't have a good outlook on how the precast is going to be for when we need it on this project. But it's not exactly a supply chain, but labor is also going to be a challenge. And just talking with the contractors, they were generally complaining about labor before COVID, and it doesn't seem like it's gotten any better. So, labor is going to be something that's going to be watching as well. In general, the contractors that we anticipate are going to be competitive on this project are generally union shops, and which seems to make them more stable. And they, with the funding mechanisms that we're using, the Davis-Bacon wages, that's basically the wages we were going to be paying anyway. So that does seem to help stabilize for these specific projects. So there are definitely challenges. I don't want to sugarcoat that.
No, I understand it. I'm also weighing that against the fiscal system out there that, depending on all the things happening in the world, whether we're raising interest rates, 25 basis points or 50 basis points, depending on what that does, with every 50 basis points equates to about 150, 200,000 to the annual cost. Long way of saying, time is money.
I agree. Yeah, if you could tell me which way interest rates were going at what time, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, up, but how soon?
Soon.
Yeah. So then the question is how high?
Hi.
They were at 50, now they're probably 25, but who knows? They beat every quarter, but I'm just, anything we can do
Keep moving
to
forward.
Keep moving.
you know, push that rock uphill when you're dealing with that. Is there any other levers or pulleys or things that we can just push that rock uphill?
I guess you know, I'll have an additional conversation with the MPCA does have a municipal ombudsman. So basically their internal advocate for permittees. And I can have another conversation with gentleman's name is Joel Peck. He's been here talking with us in the past. And I can ask if there are additional, if a call from someone in the political organization could make any difference. I don't know that it could, but I'll ask the question.
Appreciate that. Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Let me make a motion.
Sure.
Motion to authorize preparation for solicitation for bids for the Otsego West wastewater treatment facility Phase 1 improvements project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 6.2,
Keep up the good work, Scott.
West wastewater treatment facility financing.
Thank you, Mayor. I will keep this relatively short, but to pay for all of the stuff that Scott just talked about, we need to
Now I gotta do.
Yeah.
borrow money to do that, and we are requesting a resolution tonight from the council that would authorize staff to go ahead and submit a loan application to PFA for this finance. So I can certainly answer any questions, but that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I mean, obviously our rating has increased essentially every year, and currently we're at AA+.
That's correct, Councilmember Darkenwald. The city's bond rating, when going through the Public Facilities Authority, doesn't have as large of an impact on interest rates as if you were issuing debt in the private market. This is already subsidized from the federal and state government to get those lower interest rates, so it's less of an impact, but you're correct. That is the rating.
And what would we anticipate the interest rate be? Would it be close to that 1% or?
Working with Scott's counterparts at AE2S, we're currently using a projection of 1.25%.
That's over 30 years.
We're gonna push for a longer amortization, but PFA defaults to a 20-year repayment term. So we're gonna see if we can get them to push that out a little bit.
Are there instances where they do that?
I believe there are. I think there's certain circumstances that you may have to meet as a city. If there's certain effects on your rate payers that it would cause an abnormal increase in rate percentages, things like that. That's what they would evaluate. So be the chances that have any success with this.
Like at 1.25%, that like get that option to try to look at the different ways to push that out if needed.
Yeah, I've evaluated 30-year amortizations on the private market, and PFA is by far the way to go, even on a 20-year amortization. But I get your point.
All right. Any other questions on this?
If not, I'll make a motion.
Yes, Tina.
Motion to adopt resolution 2022-29, authorizing a clean water revolving fund loan application to the Minnesota Public Facilities Authority.
Motion by Tina, seconded by Tom. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item is city council reports and updates. Does anyone have anything?
2.1.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did write it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we
No,
can-
but
Oh,
we're under
on
city.
city
Yeah, I was like, no, no, no. I'm like,
trying to find 8
Oh, yeah.
I was like, no, we're on item 7.
Yeah,
7
we're on
is city
7.
council reports and updates. Does anyone have anything? All right. Hearing none. We'll move to item 8.1, which you had this counter, the housing and local decision making.
Thank you, Mayor. Hopefully this was distributed in front of you this evening. I'm gonna let city planner Dan Wick do the talking on kind of what the legislation that we're opposing would do for the zoning.
Mayor. So each year, Housing First Minnesota, which is the Builders Association of Minnesota, has been lobbying to limit a city's ability to use zoning controls to basically regulate housing within the communities. They want to strip out provisions related to exterior finishes, garage size, lot area requirements, lot width requirements. A lot of these provisions are already incorporated as part of the City of Otsego Comprehensive Plan and zoning ordinance, but they would have a detrimental effect on the city's ability to establish as a local matter of policy its own housing preferences. So League of Minnesota Cities was requesting support from its member communities to adopt a resolution supporting local control of housing regulation through zoning and its comprehensive plan. City staff drafted that. It's been reviewed by the administrator and city attorney, and so we're recommending adoption of that. It would be forwarded to
Elmer Fudd, come on, Elmer Fudd.
wow. Don't go to the chiropractor the day you have a council meeting, let me tell you. Would be forwarded to the city's elected representatives. There is a hearing tentatively scheduled for tomorrow to consider the legislation.
Of course, we would support it. Can't imagine.
And Madam Mayor, and the Minnesota home builders, they've been successful in court on a lot of issues, haven't they?
Several recent issues
Right.
pertaining to transportation funding and also park dedication most recently.
And how many municipalities are looking to sign resolutions similar to this?
I know all the clients that our office works with are considering the regulations, so. And again, the league's making this a priority.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was.
Dave,
Tom, there's a list on the league website. I think quite a large number of cities have signed resolutions opposing this bill because it takes away a lot of the local control for communities.
Madam Mayor, just to be clear, Dan. This is motion to regarding household and local decision making. So this is opposing what has been offered, just to make sure we have local priority here, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Essentially, the legislation would take away a city's ability to establish zoning regulations.
So
So
this is a motion to adopt, say no to that.
correct.
Madam Mayor,
This Tom.
make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-30 regarding housing and local decision making as attached.
I'll second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. We are still on staff reports and updates, and since we're in our new seats, which welcome back, everybody. So excited for you guys to be up here. I'm excited for the audience to be closer, all the things that I talked to Adam about and said, let's make it happen. So we're gonna go on a little different. Sabrina's first.
Thank you, Mayor. Utility billing recruitment, we had that end, so that was on the consent agenda for hiring a new person. And we'll be starting the seasonal recruitment coming up soon with the warmer weather coming. Hopefully that will get people excited and interested in working for the city, specifically in streets and parks. And then we will be looking at planning out our administrative intern recruitment as well soon. So hopefully get that in before the end of semesters, so people can kind of get some applications in. And that's all I have.
Right? Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. I would request the council schedule a special meeting for March 28th at 5:30 PM. If that fits your schedule. Juggling 2 to 3 to 4 topics that would potentially be included on that agenda.
Everybody okay with that?
What time?
5:30?
We'll try.
It is 6. I don't know if that's more helpful or.
This-
Can be.
Would 6 be more helpful?
I'm coming from North Dakota.
Nice.
No, actually South Dakota, sorry.
So is 6 better?
6 is better.
All right,
Please,
then
we can push it.
I will make a motion to call for a special meeting on March 28th at 6 PM.
I second.
Motion by Jessica, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
One last thing, I don't know if I'm stealing it from Ron, but the road restrictions go into place on Wednesday morning. All signage. will be public. That's all I have.
Wright County did a blast today too.
Good day. It's gonna get over 50 degrees here.
Yep.
I have nothing to report, thank you.
All right. Sergeant Altman's will go next. We're going in a circle. So we used to do it, everybody. Years ago, we used to go in a circle and then everybody got discombobulated and had to sit apart. Welcome back.
When the meetings go long, I appreciate not being the anchor of everything, where everyone's pointing the finger at me, looking at their watches when I'm talking. That doesn't go well.
See, now you're the middle.
I
I know.
Yeah.
you can- Do you want to sit up here with us?
I like my little kid.
Yeah,
A couple notes. The fire chief's up here. He made a mention that, his responses to car accidents were technically up 2021. I do feel like that number does kind of reflect. I did have a conversation with our dispatch. This is something that got brought up last year at the beginning of the public safety meetings, that they wanted to make sure that the fire department was paged out for any sort of car accidents that had any potential injury. So that number is probably going to reflect that. I think the number was only 15 times over the course of the last year that we needed to have Elk River Fire Department respond for crashes. We like to have that just as a precaution at this point. They agreed that that's what they wanted to be a part of anyway.
Sure.
So we try to balance that where we're making sure to have them started. However, we don't want to create an unnecessary liability for them just for responding to any little fender bender and or creating a burnout situation for them where we're paging them out for any little, some of these nights where we get a foot of snow, somebody slides off in the ditch, somebody drives by them, calls 911, says, hey, there's a car in the ditch. Now, we could probably presume a night like that, when people are only driving 15 miles an hour, they slid off into the ditch. We don't necessarily need to start the whole kit and caboodle and waking a whole bunch of firemen up 3 times over the course of a night. That creates a lot of burnout for the fire department, and we don't want to be a part of creating any undue burden on them at home. Something that's kind of interesting, I was actually ironically looking at some of the car accident numbers for Otsego here in the last kind of year, 2 years, and trying to get a real good feel for the number. And I wish I had better news to report, although I can't get a grasp on how the numbers are working. So naturally, through everything that we are dealing with COVID, traffic numbers were just down in general. Naturally, car accidents are going to go down. I want to be able to come up with a number that says, hey, what are the roundabouts doing to our city? Is this dropping the number of car accidents down? Is it dropping the number of accidents with injuries down? But then as those numbers come up, with the traffic numbers are coming up, naturally more people are going to be showing up at Target, and they're going to run into fender benders at Target. Well, all of a sudden the number shoots back up because more people are running into each other at Target or Holiday, whatever the case is. So I'm trying to go through state statistical numbers through a system that's called min crash, which basically any crash that's $1,000 or more worth of damage, the deputy fills out an online form submitting all sorts of wacky information, all the way down to, was there a cow involved? So the state likes all their random statistics. So
That's like that.
That counts with more than that.
and that's
Yeah.
now
That's
that's a whole different deal. Is now, when we first started, I think that was a whole different deal. Now it's anything's about numbers. So again, statistical anomalies.
Totally.
It's difficult to get a real good feel. So I'm trying to keep track, and I'm trying to be able to provide that number to say, like, what, honestly, these are working.
I know the deputies are going, no, we're not running into as many injury accidents at these intersections anymore. It's when we go to roundabouts, it's somebody didn't know how to go through them properly and there was a fender. So I would say that that part has been very good so far. And then with gas prices, we're going to see what's going to happen with gas drive-off situations around the county. We did make policy changes a couple years ago. How we respond to them, we typically only respond to them if they're happening in progress and that the person that is working at the store can basically relay the correct information to us. We ran into the issue back in, I think it was 2008, 2009, when the gas prices got real high, where whatever store, whatever gas station would be calling it a gas drive off, we'd show up and all of a sudden they'd put a stack of about 15 to 20 of them on us and say, oh, by the way, these are what happened over the last 4 hours. And that was insanely burdening, and it was almost impossible to track down because 9 times out of 10, a gas drive off is an accident, clerical error, something to that effect. Only maybe one time is there actually a criminal element to it where somebody intentionally went out and took gas and left. There was times where
I don't know if Holiday or Cobra does it, but I know Quick Trip,
they just
recently in January
completely
just
sweat.
said, hey, you either
Prepay.
or you pay at the pump with the credit card, and that's it.
And so with our policy change, that was what we were trying to hope to accomplish, to try to kind of force, like, hey guys, like, we can't just be showing up 6 hours after the fact and giving us all these, when something as simple as you guys can hit a button and a corporate policy, you guys can have it so it's prepay only, when especially at that time when everybody's using credit cards anyway. I know Holiday came back and they've made it known to a lot of the police departments across the state that they're trying to get people into the store. They don't, they want people to come in and spend a couple bucks on a bottle of pop or the case is. So I think they made it known that they don't want to. I don't know what the gas prices are going to do, if they're going to completely change their policy on that or what's going to happen. So it's going to be just really, when something like this happens, it has a weird trickle down effect with petty theft and crime kind of goes up in a whole bunch of different aspects all over the place. So it'll just be interesting to see what happens. So monitoring it, and we'll address it as the trainings change. That is all I have.
Make a comment. Remember we discussed, well, I asked a question, I'm not sure if it was you or one of the other deputies, about the roundabouts and now with the flashing yellow turn signals. Have you seen the trend that accidents went down, other than the, well, geez, what do I do with the roundabouts type deal? Other than that, I would say a minor fender bender. Have you seen a considerable drop compared to stoplights and or stop signs?
As far as I think with a roundabout versus a traditional semaphore intersection with all the signage and lights and everything like that, I think that I'm seeing, and again, this is where I have that statistical anomaly thing where I'm trying to come up with a real solid number, but taking all the numbers and the context behind it. I feel that a roundabout at this point does drop the numbers down, especially when it comes to the extreme levels of car accidents. We're now not running into people running red lights because they're not paying attention because they're on their phone and running through an intersection at 45 miles an hour and T-boning somebody. Those have been eliminated. Essentially, the only times we're seeing people go straight through a roundabout is when they're intoxicated. And so this is a huge difference for us, where I know when I've spoken with Chief Bowen with Albertville Fire Department, he's going, an intersection like 70th and County Road 19 is, they don't respond there anymore. That used to be kind of a weekly deal where somebody would run a stop sign, call the fire department to get rescue going, etc. And now we're not seeing that. So I think roundabouts, and I'm one of the people that I don't even necessarily like them necessarily because sometimes they feel burdensome, but kind of finding that they are as advertised when it comes to the safety aspect.
And they keep the traffic moving, as
Right. There's
the
flow.
engineer
So,
would say.
and to your point, kind of, when we had the discussion about blinking yellow lights, is we've run into the law of unintended consequences when it comes to some of the laws regarding distracted driving and looking at your phone. Well, when they created you're not allowed to look at your phone anymore. Instead of people looking up at their phone while they're driving up here, they went, crap, I'm not allowed to do this. Well, what are they going to do? They just drop it down. They still do it,
They just put it down at their, now they're just not even looking. And it's a generational thing too, with a lot of the people being indoctrinated into wanting to be on their phones, being addicted to their phones. Well, what happens when you show up at a red light? You get bored. 5 seconds for some reason in some generations is enough time for people to go, all right, well, right back to Instagram. And I make the joke, but in all honesty, when I have a lot of conversations with people like, hey, why are you on? They go, I don't even know. I had downtime for 5-10 seconds and I just instinctively went down to my phone. So we're finding that people are going to an intersection like that where maybe they have to wait. They're sitting on that red arrow and they just stop paying attention completely. And they go right to their phone and all of a sudden they're running into people honking their horns. People are trying to rush the light versus now having a blinking yellow light all of a sudden creates this. People are going to kind of still pay attention because they go, oh, hold on a minute. I actually have the ability to go through this intersection. So it's interesting through how the generational things kind of change and little laws here and there kind of have weird effects on kind of our culture.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right, any other questions? Thank you. Thanks, Jason. Great, Dave.
I have nothing. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Dan,
No update. I don't want to try and say anything.
all right. Are they giving you the look?
Yeah.
Because now we're, I was like, who's giving the look? See, we can't see. And I'm like turning my head.
Well, I'll block out Adam when I speak.
Put your hand up. Ron.
I just want to go to the open house. It went very well. People were very receptive that we had it. The one item I didn't bring up is a lot of the questions were about, are you going to bring water and sewer? And I went through what's been the policy for the city is that you have to petition the council and have the majority of that neighborhood request it. And of course, they all realize how expensive it would be. And none of them were, interested at this point, of course, but that was one of the main questions.
Do you think they were concerned because they were thinking, okay, the street's gonna be redone. This is probably them trying to put it in there in the
I think
ground?
so, that along with Ashwood,
Being right
development just to the south,
Sure.
going in, that they need water and sewer. It was close, so they were, they came to the meeting wondering, is this close enough to water and sewer? And they seemed alleviated their fears that wasn't the case.
Good.
That's all I had.
All right. Well, if no one has anything else, then a motion to adjourn would be in order. Second. Motion by Tom, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The meeting is ended. Thank you all for attending this evening.
Thank you.